Bob, you are so well versed on the economic and environmental impacts on the Gogebic Range. When you leave office, will you still stand with us?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's the shortest speech I've ever.
This comment would be in line with what else we can do to stop this mine. All the suggestions and recommendations coming thus far are excellent. We need to do all of them. I attended the Democratic debates here in this room last night, and Janet Bewley has two pretend Democrats running against her, and they're ignorant as heck. And one of them, Bob, said they can engineer anything. He said the same line. He mimicked the mayor from Park Falls, said we can engineer any problem. The other guy from Poplar said that why can't we mine? Minnesota can mine. If they can mine, why can't we? They're ignorant of the facts that you tried to pass Minnesota type amendments that were rejected, that gross the tonnage tax, and they just mimic and repeat that the DNR will take care of things, everything is okay. And after the meeting, I went up and asked them, have you read the bill? Both of them, and I had previously spoken to the mayor of Park Falls. Have you read the bill? Because what you are saying, what you are proposing is false. And I suggested that they read the bill. And I talked about the adverse impacts and stuff like that, but they're just ignorant on it. And so what we need to do is elect Janet Bewley to replace Bob Jauch, which is a tough order, but she can do it. She is up to that. She was brilliant last night. She was focused. She has a command of the issues. And we need, on August 12th is the primary, the Democratic primary. I believe it's August 12th. We need to overwhelmingly support Janet Bewley in the primary and in the general election. Bob, I watched Bob recommend amendment after amendment and get shot down in this state senate. I can't believe the perseverance this man has shown and the intelligence and the common sense he showed in the Senate. And Janet can do the same thing, so let's vote.
Well, let's face the reality that elections make a difference in two ways. The documentary really proves how this company bought a legislature they wanted. Go back 4 years ago when that when mining interests put $7,000 into an assembly campaign, almost 25% of the Republican candidates campaigned against Janet Bewley for the state assembly. They then went and contributed something like $65,000 to the governor and to other candidates, which is in small numbers compared to Americans for Prosperity, jumping 110,000 into a county board race in Iron County, which is really kind of scary. 4 years ago, I spent $60,000 in my entire Senate campaign 2 weeks before the Wisconsin Manufacturing and Commerce, with mining company money, spent $120,000 to try to defeat me. So this is really going to be an election of truth versus money seeking power. And in the Senate race 2 years ago that the documentary points out, in fact, what the Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce spokesperson, James Buchan, said, standing at what is now Caterpillar in front of their big mining equipment at a big mining conference, he said, we spent $2 million to get the legislature we wanted. And they spread lies and pitted people, simplifying the issue. You cannot let this become a debate over whether you want the mine or don't want the mine, because they want it to be a debate about whether we care. They care more about jobs than we do. And the fact of the matter is, you've got to get back to the law. That's what was wrong. I mean, some of you were frustrated because Dale Schultz and I and Tim Cullen were actually trying to adopt a law, a responsible mining law. This is ours, by the way. It's 16 pages versus 200, and doesn't change a standard, doesn't weaken standards. And what Janet Bewley did on the assembly floor and what we did was adopt the Minnesota law, including a requirement We had the audacity to suggest that the mining company would do what they do in Minnesota, is actually pay for the mine they profit, the iron ore they profit from, in a severance tax. This company had promised in this piece of legislation, which they tried to get through, that the company would pay $5 million. They thought they could get an extra vote. They would pay $5 million up front. When they spent their $2 million to buy the legislature they wanted, the company insisted that the $5 million payment come out. Taxpayers were shortchanged. Environmental policy was weakened. The public's voice has been muted. And that's what you need to keep focused on. Because lots of people have emotions about mining. The enemy is the mine company, and there's tendency that they can come in and own and buy the public interest. The public doesn't want that. They want good public policy. So focus on the policy and the law and how this company used money and power. And then support Janet, who had the guts, by the way, in her first re-election, to stand up and the truth prevail.
Justice Russo, Ashland. I have a question for Tracy Hames, but first I would like to really quickly offer a point of information. Earlier, Devon mentioned other documentaries. One of those other documentaries is called To Wisconsin with Love, and it's a 45-minute piece done by students from Eastern Mennonite University in West Virginia. They came over here to shoot footage, and they tie our GTAC struggle here in with the Elk River disaster, the chemical spill in West Virginia, and they do just a wonderful job of presenting both struggles together. That documentary is available online. You can Google To Wisconsin with Love and you'll find it. It's also on miningimpactcoalition.org.
Excuse me, and it's also going to be shown here in Ashland on the 30th.
Washburn Public Library.
Washburn Library, excuse me, I would have gone to the wrong place. Okay. At 7 o'clock on July 30th.
At the library.
At the Washburn Library, sorry.
Yep, no, thank you for that. And then my question for Tracy is I'd really like to hear him talk a little bit about what impact his findings could have on the ultimate permitting or not permitting of the mine. I've heard him speak in the past about certain criteria that this wetland could meet and what it would mean if our wetlands do meet that federal criteria.
The first thing we looked at when we got involved in this issue was trying to make sure that that the conditions existed to allow the Corps of Engineers, the federal government, to exert jurisdiction over the wetlands in this area. I think when the company first came in and proposed this, early on they were saying there aren't wetlands up there, just a bunch of puddles. And I really think that they felt that maybe there were some minor wetland issues up there that were isolated. The wetlands were not connected to navigable waters, which is an important issue. It's kind of a technical issue, but if your wetlands are not connected to navigable waters, then the federal government says we don't have jurisdiction over that, just the state does. And so I think that might have been the play here. Fix the state law and then play the game so the feds don't exert jurisdiction. Well, a big part of our work early on then was to look at that, what they call the connectivity, to make sure the wetlands on that site are connected to the waters downstream, the navigable waters all the way down to Lake Superior. And the case is very clear. And I've heard the Corps has also said that they will exert jurisdiction over all the wetlands on this site. It's very clear that these are connected. So that was a really important first step. So now we need to make sure that when a project is proposed, that adequate review goes on right now, and we understand all the complexities of the water issues in this watershed. And right now, they are very, very little understood. There's a lot of study that needs to go on from a surface water, groundwater perspective, how the water's moving downhill. I mean, there's just so much complexity right now. And then how that's going to impact not only the resources at the site, but the resources down the watershed, and especially the resources down in the Kakagan Sloughs area, the estuary. The stakes are too high to say that's a long ways away, we don't think this is going to hurt it. We need to do the studies to show that. I had the privilege today, Dr. Jim Meeker, and helped lead a tour of me and some others out on the sloughs. this morning and talked about the complexities of the water issues and the unknowns in that whole area. And the risk, if you start fiddling with things or taking away pieces of it, how then does that change things, oftentimes unknown?